they went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of the Peasants Perspective. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. We had to restart the show like 9 times. So I'm glad you guys made it out here. All one of you. I'm sure Pony Boy's about to jump in. Boom. I know. There he is right there. Just instantaneous. He had the timing just right. We've got our British listeners listening this morning as well. Jen, welcome back from the hospital. No more gallbladder for her. So, yeah, that's lots of fun. She's got her simultaneous sip all set up for this. It is a prescription bottle of morphine. So she will be joining us for the simultaneous sip this morning. Go ahead and grab your favorite drink. I know why you're here. You're here for the simultaneous sip. All you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask, or a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure of the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip.
My, that coffee smells good. Ain't it funny how coffee never tastes as good as it smells?
As you grow older, you'll discover that life is very much like coffee. The aroma is always better than the actuality. May that
be your lesson for the day. The aroma is always better than the actuality. I'm surprised at how much people like the simultaneous sip. You know, it's funny because Scott Adams, who did it for years, he's like, I can't stop doing it because people show up just for the simultaneous sip. And it's funny, just doing it for a couple days last week. I had a handful of listeners email me, be like, it's the highlight of my day. And I'm like, wow, we must be really onto something, or Scott was. So we'll continue to do the simultaneous sip. It's a whole lot of fun. If you're a regular Rumble audience listener, please join us there. Tune in. Let us know you're taking your sip. Mata Easel says, hello, son. Thought I could get on for a few. Welcome. Good morning from the deep freeze and tons of snow in Michigan. Ooh. I'm going to be driving just along the southern border of Michigan this next weekend. I'm kind of excited. Get to see all those toll roads that everybody talks about.
Oh man, I've been on them.
Yeah, I was like yesterday. They're like, it's not out west where you get to drive freely on all these nice highways. If you don't pay the tolls, you're going to drive on crappy roads.
I had no idea what crappy roads were until I went on a toll road, and wow, I thought the shocks were going to break on the car.
When you went off the toll road?
No, when we were on it, it was concrete, and it was like, it was like for like 150 miles. And then we got off, and they're like, that'll be $17. Like, what? I think you guys owe me something.
I got a $400 shock and stroke. Yeah. All right. So a little piece of news that came out of Futurism. This is by Frank Landymore. And the headline says this: wait, all those studies may have detected microplastics in the human body because of a severe error. What? So this article goes on to discuss how for a couple decades now, there's been studies about microplastics, and we're finding it in the depths of the ocean, and we're finding it in biological life and in the human brain cells and all that stuff. Well, apparently most of these studies are coming from a handful of research papers and research groups. And there's been a lot of counter studies that have run to them, but just like everything, it's like you get all one side of the story because that's where the narrative wants to go. And in this study, what they're saying is the testing method by which they test for plastic is riddled with error because fats have the same composition as polymers. Our fats have that as well. And so the way they do the testing, they like remove all the flesh, which is impossible to do. And then they incinerate what's left. And then they count the literal molecules and determine if there's microplastics. The problem is when you burn fat, you end up with the same molecules that you would get with microplastics.
This sounds like a PCR test.
Yes, it's exactly like the PCR test. It's like the actual way to analyze the amount of microplastics is totally flawed. And especially with the papers that talk about microplastics making it into the brain, they're like 40 or 60% of your brain is fat. The idea that you wouldn't get a positive test for microplastics on your brain is like saying there's no fat in your brain. Like it's just an impossibility. So that's interesting because microplastics is one of those things that keeps me up at night.
That actually helps me understand this a little better because I've heard often that, people eat like a credit card with a plastic every year. And it's like, really? I don't know about that. I mean, I can see eating bugs and stuff, but.
Yeah, apparently the big thing is they're not even certain if you're getting microplastics, if they're causing any harm.
Right.
Right. So it's like, and then they can't actually test for them. I mean, that's the biggest thing is any testing that they're doing for microplastics. It's just not an effective test when you're dealing with organic material. So pretty interesting. Just another one of those. I don't know. Maybe we'll bring smoking back. Might be good for us after. Climate's not changing. Microplastics are good. Now, we've discussed this topic of an upcoming civil war, or perhaps we're in the middle of a civil war. And we've played this Nicole Welch. She's on the left. She's one of their commentators. And I don't know where to put her on the popularity scale. I don't know if she's as popular as Steve Bannon or if she's kind of like, just a Jason Miller pundit. I'm not exactly sure where she fits. Okay. But people take her seriously on the left. Like, she's a serious pundit. She makes it onto CNN, MS Now, that kind of thing, makes the podcast circuit. And she was talking last week on a podcast about what's going to happen when Democrats finally get back in power.
The blue tsunami means that Congress is going to haul Elon Musk, big balls, and a bunch of other people's ass in front and say, what crimes did you commit? And it's going to get really serious. And the same with Trump, because I believe, and this is just my opinion, that Trump and all of the bottom feeding morons surrounding him and Elon Musk and all the bottom feeding Klingeroners that surround him, I think they commit crimes every day. And I think to reconcile all of this is going to take hardcore, not integrity Democrats. Fuck you, Democrats. Fuck you for fucking over our country. We are serious about this. We are prosecuting. We're going to uncover every document, every phone call, everything you did. We will be relentless about it. And that's the mindset they've got to have, because I think the electorate is going from, we've got to get him out, but also we want accountability.
There has to be accountability. You have to have a situation where there's accountability. And I talked about this the other day with Fanone, the former MPD police officer who almost got killed on January 6th. He said, and I think it's true, that it's more than just the Dems win back the Congress and the White House. We have to change this John Roberts Supreme Court decision that gave the President of the United States a blank check. No man or woman should be above the law in this country. And Donald Trump sure as shit should not be above the law in this country. And I think the Democrats have to talk about it in these terms, that, listen, if we get back in there, and I'm not saying I'm part of the Democratic Party, but I'm saying this is the way the Democrats should communicate. They should say when they're back in there, if you guys are going to cling to this idea that Donald Trump is unaccountable, it's just not going to work. And that means adding seats to the Supreme Court so that immunity decision can be overturned. And so Donald Trump can be held accountable for his crime.
Right.
Why did he feel like he had to say, I'm not part of the Democrat Party, but if I was going to run it that way? Why did he have to say that?
He's no longer in the apparatus. It's the fake journalism. I'm unbiased, even though I vote solid Democrat, donate to the Democrats, only cover Democrat talking points. But I mean, I'm not a Democrat, but if you see, it's the slip. It's just, it's like if I were to be like, well, I'm not a Republican. I vote with the Republicans. I go to the Republican meetings. I served prison time for a Republican president. I'm not a Republican. Heaven forbid. It's like, okay. I mean, we can all play that game a little bit, right? Here's another person who plays.
I kind of heard it a little different. Like, well, don't throw me in jail because it wasn't my idea.
Yeah, whatever. But they're planning on hauling people in front, holding them accountable. Donald Trump's committing crimes. Everybody around him is committing crimes. What crimes? I mean, we articulated crimes during the Biden administration. Just articulate them. And don't give me we're denying the Constitution for illegal immigrants. They don't have constitutional protections or rights. You know what I mean? The only protection they get is due process. Where's your ID? Oh, you don't have one? Okay.
Bye.
We'll go ahead and process you out. Here's Jim Walsh, who used to be on the radio as a conservative radio host. And in 2020, he decided to run for office and run against Donald Trump. And he's one of these, rhino, not even 100% certain he ever really was a Republican. Now I look at it, I'm like, well, maybe he was a Republican, but he was truly a country club Republican that wanted free trade, low goods, and didn't care about buying stuff from China. I'm not sure. But he echoes Nicole or Jennifer Welch or Nicole Welch's sentiments about what to do. And again, calling for more of Democrats putting their bodies on the line.
What are you prepared to do? Are you prepared to take this all the way to defend this constitutional republic? Our founders would be on the streets right now revolting against these armed thugs.
Maybe you should do it.
They need to know. Trump, the fascist, my former political party, a fascist embracing cult, they need to understand that we are prepared to fight fire with fire. I'm sorry, Democrats. I know that scares the hell out of you, but you got to be prepared to do it if you want to save this thing. What are you prepared to do? Are you prepared?
I don't think Democrats are particularly squeamish when it comes to using power. I don't know. I've met a few. So this Civil War concept, I've thought a lot about this over the weekend because you have some pundits like Alex Smith who are really on top of this. And then you have some pundits who are kind of like, it's isolated little things. When I go back and I study the Russian Revolution, when the Bolsheviks took over, it started out as an international writers club, right? It was Karl Marx, Hegel was a little bit before that. There was Lenin, and a lot of these guys kind of centered around this international co-op, and they were trying these little self-governing communes in Paris and other places. And by the time Russia came around, the objective in Russia was simple: get rid of the Tsar. Everything the Tsar represented, the economic system, the peasant system, the military-industrial complex, everything about the Tsar, the people of Russia wanted to get rid of. And so there were different factions that wanted to get rid of it. And when you go back and you look at the revolution in 1913 or 1917, all of it happened in a square. I mean, we're talking a half square mile of downtown. I can't even remember if it was Moscow, St. Petersburg at the moment, but wherever their capital was. And there were, there was a winter day that was overtly sunny, like it got up to 50 degrees in January or whatever, or February. Yeah. And so everybody came out, right? Because this was a nice day. Don't go to the factories, come out. So you had a lot of civilians out in the street on top of the half dozen provocateurs. And that kicked off what became the Russian Revolution. A small little pocket of Russia, just one little town. And the entire Soviet empire was born, with really amounted to 30 to 100 dedicated activists that wanted to overthrow the Tsar. And then another couple hundred to 1,000 people that were just okay with the Tsar being overthrown. Does that make sense? Like, they weren't going to stand up for him, but they weren't going to fight against him.
So it sounds like a Chaz chop that worked.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. So we really do have to be highly conscientious of these little skirmishes, these cities that are sanctuaries that fight against the federal government. We have to pay attention to these little town squares where some incident happens, because just like George Floyd spilt over into 50 states. We had policies and laws, and local sheriffs and police departments started enforcing rules or not enforcing rules based on whatever, political ideology they had. The greatest example of this was we were told to stay inside, and when you went outside, to wear your masks. But then when it came time for George Floyd, the health departments decided that racism was a greater threat to your health than COVID. So you could go outside to protest as long as you were protesting racism on behalf of George. Do you see how stupid that sounds? Right? But it's small amounts of people that can do this. So in Minneapolis, there's a group of software programmers who went out for lunch. But this small amount of people that are out causing havoc have been out walking through the streets of Minneapolis looking for anybody they think is ICE. So this clip right here. You see these people outside the window that are looking inside at this cafe, and they're looking at some clean-cut, well-dressed guys. They're computer guys, but these guys think they're ICE.
Oh boy!
So it goes forward. So these guys come out of the restaurant, and I know there's a lot of whistles and bells, but they're like, condemn ICE. If you're not for us, you're against us. And this guy just wanted nothing to do with it. They ended up getting assaulted. Beat up. These guys have nothing to do with nothing. They're just having lunch, and all of a sudden now they're in the middle of this. Right? But they think you're ICE. Prove you're not ICE. How do I prove I'm not ICE? Show us your ID. But
screw you.
What are you talking about, right? So that's what's going on in the streets. Again, this concept of a civil war doesn't have to be some big, huge tanks rolling down Constitution Avenue. It's when the mechanisms of good order and governance and jurisdictional street fights break out between cities, states, and the federal government. I mean, that is what a civil war is. Who's going to back the city against the feds? Who's going to back the feds against the city? You're starting to see this break out. So, for example, one of the things that happened this weekend was out in Minneapolis, the National Guard was deployed on behalf of Tim Walz, and they had to wear special orange outfits.
Oh boy!
Okay, so they're separating because. So listen to this. This is the clip here. So they're wearing special orange outfits. So what they did was Tim Walz deployed the National Guard, and in an effort, so notice how they're driving in their tanks or their Humvees. And they're wearing. So word got put out by Jacob Fry and Tim Walz. The Minnesota National Guard troops remain on standby. The Guard said that if troops were deployed, they would wear reflective vests, quote, to help distinguish them from other agencies in similar uniforms.
This is like shirts and skins.
Yeah, but now you're uniforming up. So now you've got National Guard troops deployed against federal officers.
This is America against America.
We know who's fighting on behalf of the state because they're wearing ridiculous orange vests like the rest of the protesters. It's really, really fascinating. All this would, I think, come to a screeching halt if there was some actual accountability. Actual accountability for Epstein, actual accountability for Russiagate, actual accountability for the 2020 election, January 6th, and the lawfare against Donald Trump. Apparently, it's starting to become very common knowledge that Pam Bondi is way behind schedule. I guess Bongino and Cash and Tulsi Gabbard have passed up a whole bunch of criminal referrals. There should have been things happening all along, but Pam Bondi apparently isn't reading the news headlines. John Solomon spills the beans here that she's way behind the times.
Hey, to give you a sense of where our attorney general is, she did an Epstein documents 2.0 on all of us. She did it. She put out this tweet, got a lot of traffic, great Fox News story. Oh my God, guess what I discovered? I discovered that Joe Biden gave up Donald Trump's phone and Mike Pence's phone to Jack Smith. That's great, Madam Attorney General, except that story came out in April. She wasn't even aware that wasn't a new development, but an old development that had been discussed by Senators Grassley and Johnson for months. If you want to fix the perp walk problem, if you want to fix the opportunity to bring accountability, Kash Patel has the evidence. The prosecutors, with the exception of Halligan, are lagging far behind the evidence, and that sand clock is ticking down not only on statute of limitations, but on the time that occurs in between elections. 26 elections already underway. We're missing really valuable time to educate the public. The American people are missing valuable time. I don't think DOJ is getting there. When you see that there was a 6-month delay in this document, when you see the Attorney General presenting something new that is old, she's so far behind the facts. I'm really worried that Donald Trump doesn't have the team that can bring accountability to the Justice Department. That's just my reporting. And by the way, that's what many Justice Department and members of Congress have been saying to me privately over the last 4 weeks.
So I've been able to sit back and take the little doses of hopium and kind of keep my high going from, good news report to good news report in between all the bad ones. But this one really shot me between the eyes. It's like, you're still, even John Solomon's like, I'm concerned. Statute of limitations and the election schedule. What are we still waiting for? We're still waiting for everything. We're still waiting for some kind of accountability from 2015 when Trump started coming down the escalator. Yeah. And here we are in 2026, 11 years later.
I'll take a Comey. I'll take what's the dummy from California?
Newsom?
No, the senator jackass.
Swalwell, Schiff.
Shift. I'll take a shift I'll take a shift,
Any of them, right?
Yeah.
So this is just around the corner here in Poulsbo. I have to drive through Poulsbo to get here every day. This is the local mayor in Poulsbo talking about ICE, because there's been a bunch of ICE protests and people are showing up. But before we play that, I'm going to play Jacob Fry. There's two interviews here. One is him on a podcast, and one is him after clearly the county attorneys have briefed him. Okay. And this same question is being asked to mayors all over the country, especially in blue jurisdictions.
You're basically asking, can our cops arrest?
Yeah.
From a legal perspective, yes.
And a commitment was made to direct Minneapolis police to arrest federal agents. That would be dangerous. That would be irresponsible. And my simple question is, how would our police officers do that? How would our police officers arrest federal agents when, simply put, they have much bigger guns and it would be illegal?
Okay, so Jacob Fry acknowledges the real politique that I often point out to you guys. And it really comes down to just whose gang's bigger than whose gang, right? And of course, I just lost the clip I was about to play with Poulsbo. So just a second.
Is our mayor still Becky?
No, it's a different mayor. I saw a protest in Kingston this week, and I wanted to show you the protests between Kingston and Minneapolis. Same people, folks. So this is the mayor of Poulsbo, Washington.
Oh,
this is like our hometown.
Yeah.
And Jacob Fray there first was like, of course we can legally arrest them. Turns out we can't really arrest them. And how would we do it? Their guns are bigger. Well, this is the mayor of Poulsbo explaining it a little bit more articulately.
With that said, I want to state real clearly, federal law trumps, and I say that advisedly, federal law trumps state law. Federal law trumps municipal law. We're derivative of that system. Our powers and authorities come down from the federal government and the Constitution. So let us not fool ourselves that we can slam a door here any more than we can anywhere else. So my takeaway from the last week is, and it will be on the city website this coming week, the Minneapolis Tribune did an excellent article detailing the 13 rights and privileges of citizens in regards to federal intervention, federal questioning, federal action of any kind. And so rather than giving people a false sense of security or virtue washing ourselves that does our people no good, we're going to be making and promulgating those 13 actions and rights that all citizens have and residents have, besides citizens. And so you'll see that on our website. Those are concrete actions that we approach with a sober eye to the situation here in the United States.
So when he said a little thing there that was a legal loophole. He said 13 protections that citizens get. Those are your constitutional protections, right? Includes things like right to speech, due process, all that kind of stuff. But then he said citizens and residents. That resident thing is a little bit tricky. A lot of people don't realize this, but when the country was founded, you were a citizen of your state. And as a citizen of the state, you were by default a citizen of the nation. Does that make sense? After the 14th Amendment, after the Civil War, there was a huge discussion about what it meant to be a citizen. Because remember, prior to the Civil War, citizens were typically white. They were typically male.
Landowners.
Owned land. Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, everybody became a, quote, federal citizen. They created the District of Columbia, and they house your citizenship in the District of Columbia. And so from that moment forward, you by default did not become a citizen of your state. You became a resident of it. You were a federal citizen and a state resident. This opens the door and creates this loophole where now suddenly you can have illegals come in and they're not federal citizens, but they get counted as residents. And they start to get looped into a lot of our citizens' constitutional protections for ease of processing. Literally, like for ease of processing. We just treat everybody the same, and then there's no questions about it. And that led to this huge confusion that suddenly a illegal alien who is a resident of a state suddenly has citizenship, federal constitutional protections. You do not, because you're technically not under the jurisdiction thereof, except to be thrown out. So Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation on CBS had Kristi Noem on, and she asked her about all these deportations, how many of them are actually criminals?
What's the breakdown of the percentage of those who you have in custody who have actually committed a criminal offense versus just the civil infraction?
Every single individual has committed a crime, but 70% of them have committed or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries that are here illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
But it's not 70%.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
70% of everyone
you guys keep changing your percentage. You pick and choose what numbers you think work, but that is the facts, is that 70% of the people that we have detained have charges against them or have been convicted of charges, and they need to be brought to justice. And we're going to keep doing that no matter how much you guys keep lying and don't tell the public the truth. It absolutely is that these law enforcement officers are out there every day doing the work to protect the American people, and they will keep doing that because they believe in enforcing the law, which is exactly what President Trump has charged them with.
There's a great clip from this weekend in Minneapolis where this swarm of vehicles is following around these ICE cars. They're all unmarked cars, right? So they figure out who they are and they just follow them until they block a road or something. And this truck comes up and this ICE agent rolls down his window and goes, "You guys realize we're executing a warrant on a child sex trafficker, a child predator, right? A rapist." And the woman's like, "Well, it's citizens' rights. He's like, "You guys are protecting a pedophile." Crazy. Absolutely crazy, and rolls up his window and drives off. And it's like, I can imagine a lot of these ICE officers who can see why they're going after Pablo, and they're like, I cannot believe people are defending this guy. But again, what that officer did totally broke protocol. You don't have to disclose to a third party why you're arresting somebody, right? That's between you and the person you're arresting.
Well, the thing that you just explained about the difference between citizenship and residence, and then this discussion that Christy just had on the news channel, if the news outlets would be more honest about this, would we have so many people in the streets defending or going against ICE?
Of course not. And we know there's more behind it. So we're going to get to that.
Okay.
So go ahead. Let's find out about some coffee.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Boom. Come on, give me the coffee. Jeez, it is not working out for me this morning. We'll try again. 1775. Yeah. Taylor, it is not going to work. Shoot. Let's try again. Failed. Cancel. Oh no. It's not going. I'm giving him some dead air. It is not working.
All right, well, I'm back. We'll just get going.
Shoot.
It is what it is.
Dang it.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging around, guys, through a bad commercial break there.
Horrible. Go get your coffee. It's delicious.
1775. It's awesome. Try it again. See if it'll go.
It just won't. It just keeps throwing this up.
Oh, failed. It is what it is. Okay. All right. So this is coming from Project Veritas or O'Keefe Media Group. I can't keep the two straight anymore. They both kind of do the same thing. These Project Veritas clips. I wish that we could just do a show only on Project Veritas clips. These guys do not get any legacy media airtime at all. Ever since they took down Acorn, and then they've been tagged by legacy media. Don't let them on the news. Every now and then, James O'Keefe would get a spot on, Fox News nighttime shows or something like that. But the stuff that he gets on these undercover videos, first of all, it's people that are inside the machine, have access, talk freely. They're completely sucked into one of the 7 deadly sins. Is the way
typically super damning.
Yeah, super damning. So this right here is a contracting officer for the Central Intelligence Agency. This is Gavin O'Blennis. And this was recorded March 22, 2024. It's just nugget after nugget after nugget. So listen to what a Central Intelligence Agency contracting officer has to say about protests, fake news, and influencers who start hitting on true topics that they don't want disclosed.
So when a rally happens, sometimes the bureau behind it? Sometimes.
AKA sometimes the Bureau, FBI, or the CIA is behind protests and rallies.
Like putting on a fake social media thing to like really get people mad. Post fake news. Sometimes it's not fake. It's embellished a little bit.
Who would be like a big influencer that you're after? Like I don't even know these names. Like a Fox News person or like a Tucker Carlson or like.
Oh, I'm sure he. You always want the biggest and loudest. Like that. What was his name? The one that said Sandy Hook didn't happen.
Alex Jones.
Yeah. So we were after him.
You are? Are you still after him? Why?
Because he's broke. He got found guilty and had to pay like $100 million.
So why were you after him?
We're not anymore.
Just to get the money from him?
Yeah.
Was that court case used? Was that in CIA?
Sure was.
That was the agency thing?
Well, actually, it was a defamation case. So civil. But we were looking at all of his followers, commenting, following like weapon-based, right? So even though it's technically not not the agency, definitely, but the Bureau, for instance, it's not our purview. It's a civil matter. Since they got all this access to this, and it's there.
What can we find? So they're spying on Alex Jones, going through his followers, the people that listen, right? We were going after Alex Jones. Well, it's civil. I mean, we didn't do it, but we did it. But he's broke now, so we're good. Okay, so this is how it rolls. So everything that's happening behind the scenes, we have to be pretty conscientious of whether it's real or not, even down to the protesters. So this is in my hometown. Go ahead and show the screen here, Ron. This is my hometown, and I'm pulling up on the intersection. I had to take an awkward angle of a picture, but I just got a little grasp of everybody who's out there at the corner protesting this weekend. And of course, we say no to ICE must go, freedom, not fascism, no hate, no fear, immigrants welcome here. Now, this is a part of the county that has a less than 1% minority rate. So there is no immigrants here because they can't afford to live here. Okay? There's not here. So I did notice something though. Gray hair, gray hair. Gray hair, gray hair, gray hair, gray hair. Yep. Every single person out there that was protesting, and there was probably 25 of them, except for maybe 3, had gray or very graying hair like this woman here. Okay. Now, this same thing happened up in Minnesota this weekend. So here's a gentleman who's just like I was, driving through an intersection, paying attention to who showed up to protest.
So this is in Minnesota, guys. All right. And these are, what you'll notice is, the people who are standing here, they're all elderly, okay? And this happens in this spot specifically all the time. You notice nobody's honking for them. And the reason why nobody's honking for them is because nobody supports this. But what bothers me is the fact that there are elderly homes very close by this area.
Let's go for a field trip, folks.
It's like they're going and they're recruiting these people to do this. And that's exactly what it is. It's, it's really sad, but people don't agree with this. And I'm just showing you, this is in Minnesota. This is between Edina and Richfield. Nobody's honking for them. Nobody cares. No, nobody cares about this at all.
I did notice that their fuel is $2.99 a gallon. Lucky ducks.
My wife was complaining about that yesterday. She's like, did you know the rest of the country is paying like $2 a gallon for gas? I'm like, yep.
Yeah. I know the product that I have one vice, and I buy a product pretty regularly for my one vice. And I just noticed the price went up about 40%. Enough that I'm like, I don't know if I can have this vice anymore. And I'm like, what's going on? New taxes, January 1st. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, they're not going to get my money. I've cut that. Let's put it that way. So that's pretty interesting. He goes on to explain he thinks they're coming right out of the retirement homes. I don't know that necessarily. I didn't think the people I saw were coming out of a retirement home. He thinks it's being organized through case managers and stuff. Maybe to some degree.
Maybe.
But ultimately, what this to me screams out is just a bunch of boomers that spend all their time on Facebook. And just like the Russian Revolution, they showed up on a nice day to just
And they got
show up in
nothing better to
force.
do.
And next thing you know, they're part of the stupid idiots that help usher in communist Russia. You know, if the peasants had any idea what was coming for them, they would have not done that. Now, Margaret Brennan asked Kristi Noem, Tim Walz says he can handle this. And she comes with a pretty good little clapback.
Policies. I asked you if you had put him on administrative leave. This is in question because the governor of Minnesota said the only person not being investigated for the shooting of Renee Good is the federal agent who shot her. Is he correct that the federal agent is not being investigated in any way? Is there any review of protocol here?
That we are following the exact same investigative and review process that we always have under ICE and under the Department of Homeland Security and within the administration. The exact same policy that the Biden administration used.
So
the exact
his
same
actions
review.
are being
So we haven't
reviewed?
changed any of that. I would not listen to Governor Walz. He has a very bad track record. All this billions of dollars of fraud was stolen from people under his watch. He allowed it to happen. And he also ignored the law and allowed the city of Minneapolis to burn down in 2020. He certainly isn't have good judgment in these types of situations, and I'm not going to be taking any advice from him on how we implement the law and protect people.
One thing, when I was in D.C., there was a January 6er that showed up in Missouri, and he was kind of one of these Antifa January 6ers, like didn't really fit in with the rest of the people, right? But one of the things was after January 6th, he went on a little road trip, and he went up to Minneapolis where the 2022 riots had happened. He went up to some other place where there was this alleged big Antifa encampment, and he went to the Antifa encampment, and what he saw on social media was it was this huge thing. It was like 10 tents. So every picture they had taken had made it seem like tents going on forever, but he said it was like 10 people. And then when he went to Minneapolis, where it quote unquote burned down, it's like one city block. Now, one city block burning down in 2020 is not a small, big deal. No. I mean, when a building burns down, it's like complete failure in the fire management, fire department, fire marshal. Everybody's like, how did we let a building burn down? So a whole city block is no small thing. Right. But his thing was it was way overemphasized on social media and online. And it wasn't really that big a deal when he got down on the street in Minnesota. And I would agree with that. There's a famous journalist who was in Egypt covering the revolution, the civil war they had. This has been 15 years ago, whenever they had their last big, huge, takeover. And he was sitting in a diner, eating breakfast, having a nice cappuccino, while 4 blocks away, Black Hawk helicopters and an entire coup was happening at the presidential palace and the Capitol building. And he missed it. He missed the whole thing, right? Because life goes on as normal. That's what it's like for peasants. If you're not heads up paying attention, you could be having your, meal at a cafe one morning. There could be a complete government takeover. And the next morning, the money from the previous government doesn't work anymore. Okay. And you're just going, I just want a cup of coffee and a Danish. You know what I'm saying? That is how, yes, my friend from Missouri, they didn't burn down all of Minneapolis, but a city block's a big deal. Look at what happened in Chaz. They were in court just this last month, still trying to figure out what happened with that homicide in Chaz Chop 5 years later, right? The wheels of justice churn slowly, but they grind finally. So Tim Walz in 2020 let Minneapolis burn, AKA didn't keep it under control. And when the riots broke out in Kenosha and Minneapolis, I remember we played this really interesting clip of these good old boys who showed up to defend their neighborhood with their AR-15s. Do you remember that? And he goes, before there was the government, there were Americans.
Yeah.
So we're here to defend America, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember clapping and cheering. Well, I don't know if this is one of those boys, but we got a similar thing going on in Minnesota, except he's not out there fighting for you and I stuff. He's out there trying to defend his community from ICE. This is where I start to get really concerned. So go ahead and clip to the screen here. This is you or I, Ron, just a white dude with a puffy jacket and a beard. That looks like me on January 6th, except he's got an AR-15 with a suppressor. Okay? Now, normally I'd say 2A conservative. Maybe not the case.
Oh, okay. You live in the neighborhood? Yep, this is my block. This is my area. I don't go into other people's neighborhoods and try and intimidate them. I protect my people.
Are you giving out your name?
No, I'm okay with that. Our neighborhood showing up.
You guys had a lot of people out here, right?
At least 30 or more.
Yeah.
40 or 50.
That's pretty good for a quick turnout.
So, you know, he's just out there defending his neighborhood. Just, you know, I don't leave my neighborhood, but I'm out here defending mine. So what happens if ICE comes driving down the road right there to pick up a pedophile? Is that guy going to point his AR-15 at him? I wonder how that's going to end up. So what does a civil war look like? What did the shot heard around the world sound like in Boston? It's just a quiet shot. Just
this
a
is
single shot.
retarded. This guy needs to go home and put that thing away.
Yeah. maybe not come out and pick a side between the two uniformed sides that are going after each other.
Right. I don't think it even matters what side you're on. If you're standing on the corner with an AR-15.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Tim Walz and Mayor Fry are now officially being investigated by the DOJ for their role in obstructing ICE.
And we're back with our breaking news in our national lead. A source tells CNN that the Justice Department is now investigating Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Let's get straight to CNN anchor and chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, what exactly are they being investigated for?
It's not totally clear yet, Jake. This is just breaking, and we have confirmed that the Justice Department is investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry. A source familiar has told me that confirms what was reported earlier by CBS. And essentially, Jake, as we're still trying to figure out what exactly the contours of this investigation are, we have a pretty good idea so far. And we heard from the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche earlier this week after we had heard these comments from Mayor Fry, from Governor Walz, following the shooting of a woman by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. Earlier this week, Todd Blanche was saying that ICE operates in a bunch of different counties without incidents going on. He referred to what's happening in Minnesota as an insurrection and said it's the direct result of a failed governor and an all caps terrible mayor who he accused of encouraging violence against law enforcement, something that Todd Blanche called disgusting. And he said, "I'm focused on stopping you from your terrorism by whatever means necessary." So, Jake, I think that gives us a pretty good sense of what exactly it is that the Justice Department is at least trying to base this investigation off of. Where it goes, it's not really clear right now, but this does come as the FBI director and the Deputy Attorney General were seen in Minneapolis today as they've been surging law enforcement to the area as those tensions have only continued since the shooting of Renee Good. But it does show you, Jake, who the Justice Department is focusing their targets on when it comes to the aftermath of the shooting of Renee Good here. And right now it is the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and the mayor here, both of whom have been criticized by multiple White House officials for their comments, including Mayor.
No, basically. So I think that's good. Now, as of this morning, Mayor Frey and Governor Walz have not received any kind of subpoenas or warrants or anything like that. So it's all talk and bluster, which goes back to that John Solomon clip with Pam Bondi. You know, I was indicted within 24 hours of January 6th.
Right.
So
what's up?
What's up? You know what I mean? What's up? I don't get it.
We know you guys know how to do it.
Yeah. So just for a little comedy break as we change topics here, this is Marco Rubio, who is quickly becoming, I think he already is, my favorite Secretary of State ever.
All right, let's go. What the hell is that?
Military operations for this.
Not with me.
The other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was. And I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke it.
I feel so. No one's entitled to a student visa. The press covers student visas like there's some sort of birthright. No, a student visa is like me inviting you into my home. If you come into my home and put all kinds of crap on my couch, I'm going to kick you out of my house.
About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas. And it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege.
Fund me some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. You tell me, how does a puppet show in some country around the world make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous? So we got rid of puppet shows and a bunch of other things. I'm sure there were very good puppet shows. And I'm sure that a bunch of charities in the world can go pay for it, but the American taxpayer should not.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means.
I don't think that the European Union gets to determine what international law is. No, they certainly don't get to determine is how the United States defends its national security.
Great. Every one of those is going to be a quote in a textbook someday.
I feel like I could do that job now.
Huh?
I feel like I could do that job now.
Yeah, like he's broken the ice. All you got to do is come in and be a little sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'd retweet the Marco Rubio got a new job memes. There are so many of them.
Well, he keeps getting new jobs.
He's the Ayatollah of Iran. Yeah. He's the president of Venezuela, president of Harvard. Like the funny one is where he has the mixed costumes and he's got like a Russian Federation, like president of Ukraine, and he's got like his Eskimo hat for Greenland, and it's just hilarious. Scott Bessent was on with, again, this isn't Kristen Welker. I can't remember. This is our favorite.
The lizard eyes.
And she's talking about the Fed, right? And basically trying to compare the Fed's renovation to the White House's renovation.
The White House are not the $700 million, more than $1 billion, $1.5 billion, over budget, Kristen. And the White House, that is being paid for with private funds. If I want to buy a new chair for my office at Treasury, that is an appropriation. Just to understand, the Federal Reserve has magic money. They print their own money. So when you have no oversight, why not have a little sunlight? Kristen, I have called since last summer for the Fed to do its own internal investigation, and that has not been heeded. Not been heeded. And again, I don't know about you. When I if I were to receive inquiries from the Justice Department, I would answer them. They went unanswered.
So the Federal Reserve thinks they're above the law. They don't have to answer Justice Department subpoenas. And more than that, they print their own money. They are outside of appropriations. Hello. Supreme Court. Tariffs are a tax. So is when the Federal Reserve prints money for a renovation that's unallocated and unappropriated. That is a tax on you and me, right? Mm-hmm. Just another one of those these guys are like cheating. They've got magic money printers. You know what else they have? Magic ballots, and they can make real ballots go away. They can literally burn them. Here's Patrick Byrne talking with Emerald Robinson about the undercover footage of the election worker tearing up ballots and admitting he will be burning them later.
There's so many federal crimes you're looking at right there.
Here they are talking about actually burning those tally tapes, right? Those receipts. Let's listen to that and then discuss.
He's ripping up ballots.
Mom, why do you have to rip it up?
Oh, I thought they were doing pull tabs.
Make you feel better?
Just somebody up. I didn't want to try to pick it up.
Oh.
We're gonna have a little campfire.
That box says November 3rd, 2020, unreviewed tally sheets. Like those had never been turned in. That's what they're ripping up. So they're saying we've never turned in to the proper authorities these tally sheets, which means one can assume they turned in some other tally sheets that had whatever they wanted on them. But I promise you, Biden did well. They've got these tally sheets that have never been turned in. And it says on the box, November 3rd, 2020, tally sheets that have not been unsubmitted or something like that. And they took them and they just ripped them all up. That's so many federal crimes. That is so many federal crimes you're looking at right there.
Every single one of those ballots being ripped is a federal crime. We've recently talked about a couple people that have been charged with 5 ballots, filling out 5 ballots out in Pasco, Washington for people in a retirement center. And they're going to spend a couple of years in federal prison. Okay. That's that guy just sitting there. A whole block. That's
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30.
Campfire later because we don't want these to get counted. Okay. So that's the raw ballots. Mike Lindell obviously has been litigating a lot of this stuff in court. And they had a court case where 2 separate times in court live while the judge was watching, they hacked the machines using a ballpoint pen that they could get into the courtroom. Because remember, when you go into courtroom, there's no cell phones, no whatever. So they still hacked it right in front of the judge with a ballpoint pen.
He, in front of the judge, took a ballpoint pen, hacked into the machine, flipped the whole election, and he did it twice in front of the judge. Now the judge is trapped. And I felt sorry for that judge. I go, what is she going to do? Because this is like the mafia days. Here's what the judge, when she set this to go forward, I guarantee she thought, oh, there's going to be nothing to see there. I'll be able to, let's move this forward and they can show that their machines are just fine and dandy. Well, now she's trapped. And I said, this judge will never let this go. She'll never say, hey, we got to get rid of him before the 2024 election, because she would be, it'd be a bad deal for her. So, and I knew that. So here's think of organized crime. Hello, Judge. You're living with a pretty nice family. How you doing today? I'm sure that you're going to make the right decision, and not even taking what it is, because this is how deep this goes. Now, you go past the 2024 election. Here we are, and I think it was March of this year, this judge finally makes a ruling. You know what it was? She kicks, after 7 years, kicks the case out with no standing. This was Democrats, Republicans. 7 years, she said this had standing, brought it in, went to court, and that's just so a judge can have an out. And that gave her an out.
7 years that she hadn't decided on the thing you have to decide on day one, standing.
That's so weak.
Got to the point where she watched the machine flip votes and then just tossed the whole case out.
That was
weak. Last year.
Weak.
So when people are like, oh, well, the courts have seen all these cases. Yeah. And a few of them were damning. Okay. Now, we've got ghosts in the machine, right? Where's all the money going? You can see what they're doing with the elections. Clearly not paying attention. Super obvious stuff. Can't rip up ballots, can't take them to a campfire. You can't have machines that can flip elections right in broad daylight because of a ballpoint pen, right? And on top of that, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea that the people who work for government be real people that are cashing those paychecks?
You cut 2,000 jobs in state government and you didn't lay off one worker. That's 2,000 ghost employees, ghost jobs that we cut. And there's at least 3,000 more, and we're finding more every day. But that was $200 million for the 2,000 ghost employees.
That's in the state of Michigan. They fired 2,000 employees without a single worker going home.
What? I don't get it. What?
Okay, so this story goes back about 3 or 4 months ago. We found out in Michigan that they had ghost employees.
What does that mean?
Were getting paychecks that don't exist.
So where was the money going?
Good freaking question, Ron. AIDS, double paying certain people. There's on the TV show The Office, there's a scene where they create a fake salesman. So when they reach their commission caps, they give the sales to the fake salesman so that he can get the bigger commissions, and then they just take it. Okay. Well, it turns out to be a little bit of a problem, and who's this person? That's what's going on in the state of Michigan. They're paying non-existent employees, just like the non-existent people on Social Security. It's a grift, Ron. It's a grift. How about this? A woman in California is homeless, and she's one of these people that's homeless because this life situation, can't afford rent, but she works. She's making a sincere effort. Well, she's trying to get all the assistance that's available to citizens and residents of California, right? But turns out she's a little bit more capable than their system.
Wow, watch this. A California homeless woman told a city council she was listed as sheltered at Interfaith Community Services, which is government funded, even though she was living in her car, which she said made her ineligible for services elsewhere. How many homeless people might be incorrectly listed as sheltered, but they're not? Listen here.
Faith Community Services is funded to provide housing navigation and permanent supportive housing assistance. This is their mission and their legal responsibility under their contracts and public funding. I was in the shelter for 60 days, fully compliant, document ready, and waiting to be matched for housing. I have, as of today, I've been also listed as being still there at the shelter for 2 weeks. I have not been there. I'm still on the street, living in my car, back further than I was before. Because I was not entered into the clarity system, not even once the whole 60 days I was there. It's listing me as an active client, right? Which is funding me, even though I exited the program at the first of the month. This creates false data, misrepresents services delivered, and prevents other agencies from helping me because the system shows I am already being served. Interfaith is supposed to be a housing navigation. Instead, I lost 60 days of critical time of my life. I know I'm remaining homeless, and I received none of the promised assistance with transportation reimbursements or domestic violence housing prioritization. I am asking the city for accountability, oversight, and transparency. Public funds should not be supporting agencies that fail to deliver services they are contracted to provide.
So even without discussing raw corruption, We simply have a system that's not working. Here's a woman. She's articulate. She comes up and talks. She can read. She doesn't look strung out on drugs.
No.
And she's like, hey, I fell on hard times. She mentions domestic violence. She goes to a shelter, 60 days, supposed to be enrolled in a housing program. 60 days, you're out. They're still getting paid for her being there. She's living in her car. She goes to apply for other benefits. They're like, oh, you can't get these benefits because you're on the rolls at the shelter.
Being
She's like,
served.
but I haven't been at the shelter. This is happening to my friend Earl, who I was in prison with. He spent 43 months in federal prison. Then before trial or anything, he has his case just randomly dismissed. Then he gets thrown out on the streets. He goes to the VA. He goes to the homeless shelters. They're going to give him teeth. They're going to do this. They're going to help him find a job. None of it ever happens. He's been out now for 6-7 months. He's still waiting for the things they promised him that he would get 20 days after he was released. It to me, it screams out. I sent this link to my friend Earl, and I was like, you got to watch this, man. You got to just get out of the system. You would honestly be better off just going and getting a job, sleeping on the park benches, and just avoid the entire system because they're sucking you in. They're not providing anything. In fact, they're kind of keeping you in a song and dance because you got these meetings in the middle of the day, 10 a.m., 1 o'clock. You can't have a job when you're trying to meet with case managers. You know what I mean? In the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Really big deal. Now, this all the way out here in Washington State, this is a woman who started doing research on child centers here in Washington State. And in one single hour, she found a whole bunch of these ghost kids.
Well, it was definitely Nick Shirley's work in Minnesota. And when he started showing up at daycares, I'm like, you know what? I bet you anything we have similar situation going on here in California. What I did was I went straight to the source. I went to Gavin Newsom's own Department of Child Services. I started reviewing reports, and these were from inspectors that were showing up to licensed daycares. They were licensed for 8 kids, for 15 kids, 21, 28. And on the reports, it clearly says, 28 kids enrolled, but then the state would show up unannounced, sometimes within just 8 days, and there were 0 kids there. What are the odds? In the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, during normal business hours? That's when I started calling them ghost daycares. So what I did was I went to the state's own website and I searched San Diego County alphabetically. So I wasn't focusing on any kind of surnames or ethnicity. I was just starting off at A and going there. And this was all happened on a Sunday. It was shocking, but not surprising what I found. I found 3 ghost daycares within the first hour. Well,
Within
it was
the first hour.
definitely
And she didn't
Nick
have to go
Shirley's
visit them. It was in California's own reports.
They already know.
They already know. They're already letting this happen.
Yeah.
And this might cause a peasant to ask themselves, why would they let it happen? Why would they let it happen? Well, there's this little principle we call projection. So here's an example of projection. This is Alden Bunag. Okay. And this is from a couple years ago, 2022. He goes, you're effing acting like we want to show kids porn or something. And he's talking about all of the drag time story hour and the books in school. But something I've learned through the years is whatever right wingers accuse others of something, it's definitely because they're projecting. And then fast forward to 6/17/22, same year. And this is Oahu, same guy. Substitute teacher Alden Bunag was charged Wednesday in a criminal complaint filed in federal court for distributing child pornography.
Oh, dang it.
So everything that they're accusing you of doing, even when they're accusing you of projecting, they're often projecting. Does that make sense? This is here local in Seattle, Ron. Some of our big charities, these people that are in charge of the homeless crisis and the drug crisis, turns out they had a hand in both buckets.
Now at 11, federal prosecutors are expanding the case against a Kent family accused of trafficking fentanyl across western Washington. Thanks for joining us here at 11. I'm Preston Phillips. The group is linked to a former nonprofit director who was given taxpayer money to prevent violence in Seattle. Instead, prosecutors say she and her family were distributing deadly fentanyl in huge quantities for years. Comes Jeremy Harris live tonight in Seattle with his Operation Crime and Justice update. Jeremy?
Yeah, Preston, this case first came to light about a year and a half ago when the Department of Justice dropped stunning allegations linking a well-known Seattle community activist to a fentanyl trafficking ring. Since that time, this case has mostly stayed out of the headlines, but we now know prosecutors...
Oh, I wonder why.
...more charges against more people as the first of now nearly 24 defendants has pleaded guilty.
My name is Marty Jackson. I'm the Southeast Network Executive Director at the Boys and Girls Clubs of King County.
Marty Jackson was. Look at how put together she looks. She's got the uniform. Everybody's in blue. She's got a crowd. She's talked seriously. This is who we're up against.
Trusted by Seattle leaders, she routinely appeared on TV as her organization, the Southeast Network, won lucrative contracts to provide violence interruption in Seattle schools.
Part of these connections help us to build a safety net that allow for kids not to fall through the cracks or to feel outcasted in their communities.
She also provided community safe spaces, one of which was the target of a mass shooting in 2023.
The overwhelming response we got from the community, especially from our young people, asking us and telling us, you have to go back. You have to get back in space.
But federal charges allege she was laundering money on behalf of her son, Marquise Jackson, and her husband, Mandel, who prosecutors say were the leaders of a nationwide fentanyl trafficking ring. Now, investigators have charged 23 people as part of the conspiracy. And after a year and a half, the first defendant, Michael Young, has pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Documents
7 years, fentanyl, money laundering, drug trafficking across the world. And they're going to mention here, for sure, overdose and deaths.
Oh, boy.
Same sentence as me. Same sentence as me.
From his sentencing gave more insight into the federal investigation, including that the Jackson drug trafficking organization would use couriers to drop off ghost bags at the airport and ship drugs in protein containers and transport drugs using hollowed-out vehicle tires. Prosecutors have tied them to nearly 1 million individual pills, as well as kilos of fentanyl powder, cocaine, meth, guns, and cash. Prosecutors say the group unquestionably led to overdose and death.
One of the new charges that was added here alleges there was prostitution involving Jackson, though the documents don't go too far into what's behind those allegations. Now, all the defendants, except for Young, have pleaded not guilty. Some of them are being held in custody at the Federal Detention Center in SeaTac, while some are on pretrial release. The sentencing range here, if convicted, especially for those ringleaders, could range from 10 years to up to life in prison.
So those trusted people that we give all that government money to the nonprofits to make sure they prevent violence and crime and drug use in our neighborhood, really well used. Ron, you want to know a funny joke?
Yeah, I guess.
The government is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
I love Ron Swanson.
The government is excellent and uses your tax dollars excellently. This is Scott Bessent again on with Kristen Welker at Meet the Press. I hope I'm getting that right. Is that right? Yeah, Kristen Welker at Meet the Press talking about Greenland. Greenland is fascinating. Something interesting came up. Scott Bessent's going to mention something that the Danish did to the Greenlanders all the way up until the 1980s. Just listen to it in this clip.
Press you on what you have said are national security concerns, particularly as it relates to Russia and China. Senior Democrats say there are no pressing threats on Greenland's security from Russia or China. The Danish foreign minister says there hasn't been a Chinese warship in Greenland for a decade. What evidence do you have that this is a pressing threat?
Well, first of all, Kristen, we have asymmetric information. And again,
asymmetric information as in we know what's really going on.
Yeah. President Trump is being strategic here. What evidence was there that the Russians were going into Crimea? What evidence was it? Well, actually, there was a lot of evidence that the Russians were going to go into Ukraine, and Joe Biden said, well, just take a little bit of it. But what we know is that the U.S., that Greenland can only be defended if it is part of the U.S., and it will not need to be defended if it is part of the U.S. The president is trying to avoid a conflict.
Okay, so he didn't mention the part I wanted to mention here. He's going to mention it in the next clip. But first, we're going to lead to the clip that I was going to tell you was going to support what he said. So this is a Greenland resident who's talking about how the Danish made her sterile. They had a sterilization program in Greenland to keep the population suppressed all the way up until the 80s.
Whoa.
Without I knowing it, when I was, they have told me to come to the hospital in my hometown, and I said in Greenland. Then I was 12 or 13, and second time they told me to come again when I was 14 or 15. And I didn't know they have IUD. So I couldn't have a baby. I have many struggles in my tummy. A lot of surgeries, a lot of complications. I cannot have a baby. I lost my baby. So it's genocide of Denmark. And then they say it's not genocide. They make an excuse and say it's a cultural genocide. They make it pretty. No humans have to make pretty things like that. It's genocide.
So the Danish, as recently as the 1980s, were committing genocide on the Greenlanders to suppress the population, right? But we have a right to rule this place. You talk about colonial rule and stuff like that. This is one of the last bastions of colonial rule, right? And they were doing that to the Greenlanders like up till recently. This is where Scott Besant mentions that. What right did the Danish have to rule Greenland?
And annex all of Greenland, something that 85% of people living in Greenland oppose.
Well, again, and let's look back. Denmark has a terrible history with Greenlanders. There was forced sterilizations up until the 80s or the 90s. So all of a sudden, now that the U.S. has expressed an interest, there is this new interest. And again, the United States needs to be in control to prevent a war, and that we do not want to get dragged into someone else's war.
Yeah, of course. And they're saying that Canada very well may be the next Ukraine, which is one of the reasons why Trump is so adamant about getting out in front of it and getting control of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So over the weekend, right, like last week, the Danish and the Greenlanders came to meet with Trump. They were like, we're not going to give up. And, the Americans were like, no, you are. And they're like, well, they haven't budgeted off their position. Well, a bunch of countries, I can't remember all of which, but it was France and England and whatever. They were like, well, we're going to defend England. They made statements. So Trump came out and said, well, I'm going to add 10% tariffs. And then on June 1st, if you're still not into me getting Greenland, I'm going to make it 25%. So, Germany had sent some troops and France had sent some troops. They literally sent a singular person to go show force in Greenland. They actually did this.
Okay.
So Donald Trump was asked about this, about Denmark sending some troops along with Germany. And he said, listen, if you don't support my position on Greenland, I'm tariffing you. Germany already pulled back their troops like in one day. They're like, we're not really into this fight. Donald Trump gets asked about it.
About things such as not going to happen. We're not, I can't rely on Denmark being able to fend themselves off. They were talking about they put an extra dog, and they were serious about this. They put an extra dog sled there last month. They added a second dog sled. It's not going to do the trick.
Denmark fought alongside the United States in both Afghanistan.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it. I have a very good relationship with Denmark, and we'll see how it all works out. I think something will work out. Yeah. Do about it.
I love that. They sent another dog sled team, and they were serious about it. They were. I don't know if I covered it. I had it teed up in the show. I'm not sure if I covered it or not, but they were like adding second dog sled for patrol. And it was like, yeah, because that'll stop the intercontinental ballistic missile.
Yeah. It's going to be like, there they go.
Yeah. Even John Fetterman sees the ridiculousness of the argument for people on his side of the political aisle that are arguing against taking Greenland.
Do you think military force is really an option from the Trump administration?
No. I think that's wrong. And no one, that's not an option. And for me, though, it's also undeniable that, one, this is not a brand new conversation. Truman and other in the past offered to buy it there. And now I also remind people it's actually closer to us geographically, North America, to Denmark and Europe, to technically that too. So it's not an absurd idea.
Not at all. Do you think military?
It's not an absurd idea. I'm telling you, I love Fetterman more and more. He can barely get a full sentence out, but all the key words are there.
Did you see that setup they had?
Yeah, like tons of.
Holy smokes! Did you see the light panels?
Yeah, I know.
They're like full sheets of plywood size.
No shadows being cast in there. So it ultimately leads up to this.
As tensions rise between NATO and the U.S., French troops have arrived in Greenland to help begin training the local population on how to surrender to the United States. More updates on the joint mission are expected in the coming days.
That's where we're at. All right, guys, that's it for the private today. We are going to the public. We're going to jump over to the private, and we're going to talk just a little bit about Canada.